There's a neighbour that I know, Oliver Christopher Dean. He tends to spout a lot, but never really explains what he means. He's been residing on my street since we were both green-eyed and small, but he never spoke to me until teenage turbulence caused him to call. His first knock on my door, I shrugged off and lazily ignored, but after hours of pounding glass, it was clear he'd never grow bored, so inviting him inside, I greeted and sat him down, commencing his verbal barrage, and I could hardly seem to get a word around. Though I'm sure his warnings were filled with pure intentions, all they stirred in me was a lingering dread, and no matter how my logic pushed back, he offered a rebuttal to every word I'd said. Drained of my peace of mind, I was too fearful to be alone, so I invited him to reside alongside me in my home. With his presence becoming a constant, his fear and warnings took to court, and by wading in such cynical waves, those words soon breached and decayed my thoughts. With an uneasy alliance to keep ourselves locked in and safe from shadows at the door. It may not exist, perhaps just a thinly veiled mist, but why take the chance at all? The safety zone of home soon collapsed into even smaller space, for Oliver's worries leaked out and left stains across the place. What was once both our serene sanctuary became much like the terrors we had fled, with the wallpaper peeled sickly green, the carpet a deep brooding red. Barring up my bedroom, our final base to retreat, I sought desperate escape in the gentle drift of sleep, but even slipping down that silk stream, I found myself anchored to those fears. Oliver's warnings had still not come true, but the dread had never disappeared. Seasons spent waiting, with a constant sick pit stirring in my soul. I began to realise the fear may be a farce, but I just couldn't let it go. Oliver's preaching continued. Each day he gave another reason to be afraid. Insulate inside or try live my life, the choice was mine to make. As crippling as the anxiety was, what sort of life was this? Surely facing the risk was better than fearing every threat to exist. Whilst leaving, Oliver clung to my leg, pleading to keep me from danger. But I couldn't stay hidden any longer. The life I'd once loved had become a stranger. Throwing away the chains, I crept out fearfully, anxious of the dreaded fate that had bided its time for me. Instead, I found the wallpaper a mellow cream, the carpet a soft spray of blue. The curtains sat rested and open, inviting the morning sunlight's hue. Driving away the terror of the shadows at the door, it was at this point I began to wonder what I'd ever hesitated for. I leapt back into the world, once my fears had subsided, and I began to ignore the warnings that Oliver had provided. Plenty of his prophecies never even came true, and the ones that had some semblance of weight were just a faint resemblance of the words he'd used. Soon Oliver himself moved out, back to his place a few houses down. It's not that he didn't want to stay, it's just that I didn't want him around. For although he's well-intentioned, he tends to spout a lot of end-of-days talk, and sometimes you can't hold your step for what comes next. Sometimes you simply have to walk.